All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, this is Coffee with Community Services for April 21st of 2023. My name is John Decker, the Director of Community Services at Alta California Regional Center. Coffee with Community Services is our weekly service provider meeting, and we've got a big agenda today. We're going to introduce some folks that we have on here. So from our Community Services Department, I see Beverly and Alicia. Good morning. And our manager, Jordan. Good morning. And I see Odelia on. Good morning. And Rima from Community Services. And we have from Client Services, I see Cindy Lay is on. We've got our Community Services Manager, Helen Neary on. Another one of our managers from Client Services, Phil Perez is on. I see Jasmine this morning drinking coffee. Good morning, Jasmine. Let's see, we have Adriana from Community Services. Our Director of Client Services, Michelle Johnson, is on here this morning as well. From Client Services, we've got Laura Gorham, one of our Client Services Managers. Good morning, Laura. And Shirley from Community Services. And I see Jessica, one of our Service Coordinators, is on here. Good morning. And let's see, Isabella Vega from Community Services. And let's see, we've got Carol from our Client Services. Good morning, Carol and Wyatt, Client Services Managers, and Valerie, another one of our service coordinators, is on. Associate Client Services Director Johnny Zhang is on, and maybe I'll have Johnny keep your email open if you can, because I'm going to ask you to share your screen, I think, with the documents that you shared with folks last night. And I see again Danny here. Good morning, Danny from our Community Services Department. And I see Christy this morning, Christy Wassa. Good morning, Christy. And Leah Mosher is on. Leah, and our lead Community Services Specialist Jason is here, and my assistant Zach as well. So I know we'll have more folks that join during the meeting, but thank you all for joining us today. We've got 65 folks on, so we're going to get rolling. We are going today to discuss a few different things. We're going to, again, discuss the DSP Collaborative and the upcoming job fairs. We are going to talk about ride sharing. We're going to talk about Uber and Lyft a little bit, and an temporary option that we're going to be offering. We're going to be discussing remote work for regional center staff. I know it came up last week and during the PAC meeting last week as well, and we had an opportunity to do a follow-up discussion with the client services managers, and so we're just going to update folks a little bit on that too. And then we've got some accounting updates. We've got some kind of future topics that we are going to be gauging folks' interests about, and what we will start with Rima from the very beginning. So Rima, I'm hoping that you can start us off, and I would share with folks that I get excellent feedback from Rima. She is a statewide leader as it relates to deaf and hard of hearing services. She's actually I think one of the co-chairs right now of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Specialist group that the Association of Regional Center Agencies has. And her communication and leadership has been excellent. I just got a report about it this morning. So I'm going to throw it over to Rima for our word of the day for community services here, the word of the week, and a little Deaf Culture 101 as well.
Hi, everyone. Hey there. So the sign of the week today is, please write this down. So it's a phrase. So if you can copy me in signing, that would be great. Please. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. So would you mind, actually is what I would like to teach you, is would you mind writing that down? So would you mind, comes off the top of your nose like that with your index finger, writing. Would you mind writing this? So that's when you can use this sign or this phrase. Maybe you know just a little bit of sign, but not too much. So maybe you could say, would you mind writing that down? You may see some deaf people using that often as well. Like someone will come up and speak to them and they'll say, would you mind writing that down? So that way that, we can understand each other and communicate. It works both ways. Like I said, if you're not that skilled at signing, you may just want to use that to be able to communicate with a deaf person writing it down instead. So I also wanted to share just one of the best ways I think to learn sign language is from a deaf person. And you may wonder, well, why is that? Because right now you can see on social media, there are a ton of different videos of people teaching sign language, which most of, well, shouldn't say most, but a lot of them are hearing. And I want to just tell you why I think it's better to learn from a deaf person. One of the reasons is because a hearing person is not a native sign language user, whereas a deaf person is, and they may be teaching incorrect signs. They may be using incorrect facial expressions or grammar. And I've noticed it, on social media where, um, people, they're trying to learn, from somewhere. And, social media is a good place, but you got to know the right places to go. So you may want to look at YouTube, look for deaf people who are teaching sign language. They're the perfect people to learn from. And that will definitely help you in your sign production. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rima. And again, I hope all of our staff are taking an opportunity to watch the YouTube videos that are being posted, and then also scrolling down to read the additional information that Rima provides, because I think that is really key information to share. And so, again, thank you very much, Rima. Thank you for your leadership at our regional center, and your I appreciate the energy that you bring to this job of trying to expand services for our about 1,500 individuals with lower hearing levels at our regional center.
Thank you, John, and you're welcome.
All right. I am going to go over to the discussion that we kind of continue the discussion that we had last week, related to remote work, and expectations for our staff and things like that. So there was feedback that we received both at our provider advisory committee, and we also got feedback here as well. And many of you were here last week for that. It seemed about a kind of a mixed bag of feedback. Some service providers felt like they were under the impression that, or have experienced our staff calling into meetings or zooming into meetings, when otherwise they could be attending in person. And so again, we had the opportunity to discuss it with our client services managers as well this week, to update folks. And hopefully I can say this right the way Tracy said it, but it is remote work. It is not an at-home job. So that it is not work from home. It is remote work. And that is two different things. We have an expectation that people may start their day at home. They may spend their day working from home. But if they have appointments and activities that are out in the field, regardless of the day of the week and whether or not it's supposed to be an inside the office type of day, they should be attending those meetings in person if that is what the request is. Again, we want to honor those requests of our clients that are wanting those in-person meetings. And so we talked this morning, we're going to send some follow-up communication to all of our service providers so that the expectations are really clear. And this is what we've been trying to do for like the last year plus solid, is making sure that the messaging that goes to our service coordinators also goes out to all of you as service providers as well, so we're consistent. And that means that sometimes we have to wait to tell you things until we talk to our service coordinators and our managers first, so we can roll things out. But again, we will share the same information that we shared with our staff. We want to be very transparent about this as well. We do thank those that gave feedback. I will open it up to anyone from case management that might want to add on to that. And if not, we certainly don't need to, because I think we've touched on it pretty well. All right, is there any questions right now about that? Again, we're going to put out written correspondence to everyone signed up on MailChimp next week under the service provider tab for us to just, again, have a written expectations really clear out there as it relates to remote work. All right, thank you very much. We are now going to go over to rideshare and talking about the expansion of rideshare. And so I'm going to throw it over to Johnny because Johnny wrote up an excellent summary of kind of the next steps of what we are planning to do for this temporary option. And so Johnny, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit from the body of your email about kind of the parameters that we've put on this and which service providers we are looking at opening this up to. And then I'm hoping that we can share the documents that we are going to be sending out to providers so that we can ensure that we are kind of doing this appropriately. And you're welcome to go over the kind of service initiation kind of plan for the service coordinators too. Like what's a service coordinator going to do to kind of initiate this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. So good morning. So as we all know, transportation has been sort of a challenge in getting our clients to and from day programs, to other different types of services that even though we've authorized as a regional center through the planning team, clients have not been able to get to and from. And so with that, in the interim, as a temporary service to provide support to our clients to get the services that they need, we're going to be looking to rideshare. So essentially Lyft, Uber, the information has already been shared with our case management managers. And just wanted to note this was definitely a collaboration between case management and CSS, our Community Services Supports Department. Certainly a lot of kudos to them for bringing this forward so we can discuss and find a solution in the interim as we continue to work on those permanent transportation plans for our clients. So with that said, specifically the providers that we are looking to, just wanted to note, this is going to be under service code 024. So this essentially would be a reimbursement. So we are specifically looking at our opening this up to our SLS day programs, employment programs, as well as respite vendors. If you guys are open to essentially do a purchase reimbursement, what we will be looking at is adding that into your rate table under your vendorization. This is going to be very specific to each individual client. Keep in mind, it's going to be Uber, Lyft. They will have to be able to independently get on the transportation and ride through it without any issues. And so it's really going to come down to the planning team level to discuss if this is appropriate. If a client requires an aid or additional support during that transportation, then it may not be. But again, it's going to be at the planning team level to discuss, is this appropriate? So a couple steps. If SC is going to be discussing this obviously as an option if a provider is interested. So a couple of things that will need to happen. Let's say, for example, a day program is interested in this option. What they'll need to do is we have to add that 024 service code onto the rate table. What you have to do as a provider day program, let's say, for example, is reach out to Michelle Duchesne. So that way she can connect you with one of her CSS specialists to have that rate added. And so that will then be added, at which point, obviously at the planning team level, if that was an agreement for a particular client, then there's a form that needs to be signed by the provider, basically certifying that this is something that they agreed to do, as well as that there is a very clear expectation of what that looks like, as well as what is the expected outcome. And then there's also going to be another form that a client needs to be able to acknowledge it, essentially saying, look, this is service that's going to be provided through this provider, and the planning team also needs to agree to it, at which point then the service coordinator can look at the next few steps that needs to happen, which includes providing obviously intern a purchase of service. But before that, because keeping in mind this is the purchase reimbursement, everything's going to be done in the rears. So let's say, for example, the team agrees to it. The provider day program funds the ride shares or whatever, how many times that's been agreed to for that particular month. At the end of that month, the provider would then send basically a monthly invoice itemizing all those different rides with a total at the bottom to the service coordinator. The service coordinator at that point will then enter a POS, so that way the provider can be reimbursed. So that's sort of in a nutshell the process. What I will share is, John, do I have the ability to share my screen?
I actually have the vendor certification up. I took a chance and opened up my email, so things seem to be going okay so far. So I'm going to share my screen
Okay,
with the
cool.
vendor certification document, just so folks can see. We're trying to model these things kind of off of the easiest way possible to get it accomplished with as little amount of guessing work as possible with the service providers as well. And so, are you seeing the transportation reimbursement form there? Yeah.
Yep.
So you can see the acknowledgement. I'll let you guys, Johnny, you're familiar with this too, but this is just um, it's a description of it, and it's your certification and your signature down there, and then that is what is going to be needed from that service provider to get this added in. And then, sorry, do you want me to look at the other one too? The other form,
Yeah, I think it'll be helpful. I
the
know.
the client acknowledgement form.
Yeah.
Okay, and then let me share the client acknowledgement form. All right. So you can see the different why it's needed. We left some spots there. So we have that information in there. Again, this is, as you can see here, this is, this is in the interim right now. We've heard loud and clear from many folks, right, Johnny, that we are not being able to get everyone to the programs that they need to get to the employment sites that they need to get to. And providers have asked, is there a way where we can help out by doing ride shares? So this is a short-term option. It is certainly not preferable for us to use a non-waiver billable service to fund transportation, which is in essence what is going on here when we are using purchase reimbursements. But the greater need is for our clients to be able to get to their services. That is, again, what our biggest concern is at this time. So I think, Johnny, we're opening this up for the next, few months here while we kind of try to get things stabilized. I understand that our unmet TSRs is down to 173, which is the lowest I think that I've actually ever seen it. Even like before COVID, we always had so many that we need to do. So let's see. Stephanie Gordon writes, so the provider has the rideshare account. And this is to clarify the form. Yes, this is to allow you to use Uber or Lyft on a short-term basis, as we do not have some permanent transportation set up for a number of our clients, and we need to get people where they need to go. Questions from folks? Johnny, anything else that we want to touch on? I mean, again, we're going to send out written instructions to everyone. I'll have Michelle and the team send things out on Monday to all the different service codes that are impacted by this, but people have been asking about this. They asked about it during our provider advisory committee meeting, and we didn't have an update to give them, and so we dove back into it, and kind of this is where we're at right now. Eric, yeah, hands up. Go ahead.
So we just recently got authorization to try to help with this too. So this is for the provider to coordinate their ride themselves on
Yep.
behalf of their client for their program, which is awesome. So we haven't met with the regional center yet to work on the problem, but I guess I just want to let folks know what we were looking at is maybe there's providers who don't want to do that or don't have the capabilities to coordinate those trips themselves or pay for the trips and then get reimbursed or however that's working. So UCP is at least going to work with the regional center on an option where we could do that for you too. So maybe there would be that other option as well, where that request could come to us and then we would have the software and we would have the staff to book the trip, confirm the trip, and try to make sure that that ride happens. So that's something that we're going to work on if anybody privately wants to reach out, because we're trying to design something that would work the easiest for the client and the provider in the case. So that's
Again, this just cannot be an
working on.
ongoing service, right? This is in order to provide transportation for people with developmental disabilities, there is a lot of rules that are in the regulations in relation to this. However, and again, it's also not a waiver billable service, which we are not supposed to be utilizing widely, and especially for ongoing things. But in this temporary interim phase where we need to shore up our transportation, this is the best option that we have to try to get people as connected to their services as quickly as we can. Eric, I think it's a great idea, certainly, and I appreciate, and maybe as folks are doing this too, if folks want to talk about like what's working for them and not as it relates to doing this, we can have that discussion in here, or we could even schedule a separate meeting for those providers that are interested in doing this, maybe, to answer questions about it as well. And I will open up to questions in general if folks have about transportation right now. Mary, you can mute yourself.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. I have a question regarding the rideshare situation, and I don't mean to put a damper on things, but my concern about the client safety, are we making sure that these drivers have background checks? Like, because one person, I don't know if you guys heard about in the news, but they were killed by their Uber driver or something like that. So that's the only concern I have at this point regarding using rideshare. If there's a way we can make sure that we can keep them safe for their transportation or use some of the same drivers. That's my one concern about that. My other two things that I've noticed working with our service coordinators and trying to set up people for transportation, I've noticed do we have incentives for transportation vendors to do longer distances? We have some clients that would like to attend our program, but distance is an issue. Do we have, can we offer incentives?
Well, and I think you're talking about is one of the biggest issues in the state right now is the way that the new transportation rates have been developed. There is no incentive for driving longer distances because the way they set it up was at a per trip rate. Eric, go ahead. Yeah.
So, currently there's, I think we counted when I was working with DDS on transportation, there's like over 20 different ways transportation companies in the state California have been vendorized by the 21 different regional centers. So the way current transportation contracts today work, they're kind of all over the place. So some folks could accommodate a longer trip based on their contract, some wouldn't. But the rate study that they're implementing forces all transportation companies to a single per trip rate, which does not provide an incentive for longer trips. It basically creates client trips that are unprofitable and profitable, which is horrible to say. All I'm trying to say is you could look by somebody's address or their zip code to know if you can serve them, which is not how we want the system to function. So I've been meeting as part of a transportation work group, and we've submitted a white paper that basically says the per trip will never work. There's no such thing as a per trip rate that will ever work. You have to either have supplemental rates that's a per mile add-on. So if a trip goes over a certain mile or time, then you get a supplemental rate per mile or time that you have to run. And that should just be an automatic add-on if the regional center approves the trip. Or you need to have a secondary option like a vehicle service hour rate that converts over for longer trips to accommodate distances. So we've actually proposed new rate tables, new models, and we're trying to get the state to take this seriously as a fix to the rate study, just like the ILS rate fix that we've been talking about. We proposed a transportation fix to adjust, have a mileage and or maybe even a time adjustment for longer trips, because we think it's not an option. The state can't do a per trip only rate.
This is especially a concern of ours, right? With our huge catchment area. We have 10 counties that we serve. We have some areas that are really underserved with transportation. I certainly am would agree the concerns related to ride shares and safety concerns. I know Johnny in the beginning kind of had a discussion about the assessment done by the service coordinators. But the reality is not everyone here is aware of all the other things that go on in public transportation or yellow cab or other things with our clients as well. And I will just share that it's certainly not only the ride shares, Uber and Lyft per se, where our clients are at risk or can be at risk. And I'll be honest with you, we need to figure out a way to get as many people connected to their services as possible. And right now, because we don't have transportation providers that are agreeing to pick up the clients and take them places, this is what we have as an option. If you are a transportation provider and you feel like you have a lot more availability and you're not getting contacted or something like that, Helen is right here. She's the supervisor that oversees all of transportation. Our transportation coordinators are working hard to get things connected, but ultimately, our need is, just really outpacing where we're at as far as our resources right now coming out of the backside of COVID. So let's see, there's something in the chat too that just popped up. Okay, cool. So yeah, please email Eric if you would like, and he can give you a little bit more information related to the transportation methodology that they are proposing. And I mean, we obviously know nothing's going to happen this fiscal year because the fiscal year is almost over with. My sincere hope would be that we see something next year solid from DDS as it relates to transportation, because we got one more year for the implementation of the rate study. There will be more questions as we work in training our service coordinators on how to implement this process. And your feedback as service providers will be very important during that process. And again, we appreciate those providers that have stepped forward to say that this is something that they are interested in. And I guess, Johnny, we would just repeat to say being mindful of what the needs of the individuals are as it relates to transportation as well when making this assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we certainly would recognize that it's not going to be for every client, right? So it's going to be individualized. So certainly keep that in mind as you communicate with the service coordinators as part of the planning team.
Excellent. So you will see correspondence from our community services department if you have one of those service codes, so that people are aware of the availability of that. All right. I am going to jump over to my favorite topic, which is the DSP collaborative. And I'm going to share my screen real quickly. Before I do that, I'll just mention we had Michelle Johnson and I had an opportunity to participate in a town hall meeting on, was that Wednesday evening, in the city of Davis. And I don't know, Michelle, would you mind sharing a little bit about kind of what we did while we were over there?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everybody. John and I had an opportunity to engage in a discussion / listening session with clients' families in Yolo County about housing needs and kind of, what caregivers of clients with intellectual developmental disabilities need from the community, from the county or the city of the county of Yolo. And so Supervisor Jim Provenza was there. And again, it was a great experience. There was about 60 people, I think, in attendance. It was hybrid. So we had about 30, 35 in person and the rest on screen. And again, folks just, asked questions about housing needs and shared ideas. We responded to some questions about services, and also took note of some needs that are, out there in terms of transportation. So this Uber Lyft is timely because I know John's working on something for that community. But yeah, had an opportunity just to engage with the clients' families about housing and planning for the future and what caregivers are going to need to support folks.
Yeah, I mean, I have not been in front of a room full of parents in 3 years, at least. And so it was great. Like, it was a great opportunity. And then, to really hear from the parents. And, Michelle was the supervisor of that Woodland office for so many years. And so she knew a bunch of the folks, both from the county and from the audience as well, the parents and clients that showed up. And so with that, though, I know I spent like another 2 to 3 hours after that meeting thinking about all the feedback that we got as it went into the evening. And transportation, housing, were big things, right? Those were big topics. And so we talked about these things. And one of the discussion was, but what about the workforce? Like, it's great that we want to talk about housing development and other things like that, but unless we have the workforce availability, how can we actually make any difference? And so Michelle looked over to me and said, the DSP collaborative. And so that's one thing that we were able to share with the parents is that, our regional center has really tried to promote the hiring for our service providers through the development of this DSP collaborative website. And I'm going to share my screen again real quickly as a reminder to folks. I will say I appreciate that the word has gotten out there and so many of you have signed up now. We have, I think, about double what we had signed up last time. I checked this with you all. So that's just Sacramento County there. And I don't know, you can see Placer County. another one of ours. So, I mean, you guys are starting to fill up the jobs in there, and I really appreciate it because today is when the media ad thing starts. That's when we're really going to start promoting both the website, and we're also going to be promoting the job fairs that are coming up as well. So we have, I think, over 51 folks signed up so far for the Disability Industry Career Expo. Can everyone see the flyer right there? So that's May 3rd, and it is located at 5451 Lemon Hill. I know Carly sent out approvals approvals saying that you were registered for the expo, and I think they're looking at seeing how many more tables we can fit in there as well, because we have a lot of folks that have already done that. So anyways, we really want to encourage people to both be participating in this. And then, the website is not going away, just because we're having our first job fair. I think our hope is to have multiple job fairs in multiple areas throughout, our regional center catchment area, because there's certainly more, needs up in Sutter Yuba. We know that, there's a job fair going up in Grass Valley. I think it's actually the same day. There's a job fair going on in Grass Valley as well that Heidi sent us information about. So again, just really want to encourage you as service providers to utilize the website, put your job postings on there. It is for free. It does not cost you $2,500 in order to post your jobs on there. We certainly made that clear to folks. So I really appreciate all the efforts. Again, Michelle Ramirez and Eric, have really Garrett from CLO as well have really put a lot of efforts into supporting the development of the website. And so just want to encourage people to use that because we're all still having workforce challenges. And I will be there at the job fair as well. I know Lori's going to be out there. There will be, I believe, Gary and Carly are going to be there from our staff, and probably most of our other community services staffs might pop by just to check out and see what it looks like down there during the day as well. So look forward to seeing everyone at that event. And again, the ways that we can support you all in your hiring helps our clients get their services. It helps them get individualized services. And that was the argument as to why DDS funded this initiative with HCBS funds, is that in order to be HCBS compliant, it's tough if you don't have the staff to be able to do it. So let's see. Anyone want, let's see. If you are having issues, you can shoot a message to the webmaster at the bottom there from Parkbench Digital. Their contact information is at the very bottom, or you can also shoot me an email and I can connect you with the guy from Parkbench Digital. That's one thing that I like about it, is that you can post your own logos and your own pictures and things like that on the website. And so we don't want you to lose that functionality of that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I know Scott, who's been designing this, has gotten really good about adding in people's feedback. And there is nothing below. I know someone reached out to me last week about an issue with the website. And I am certainly available because I'm really helping them coordinate all of this. So I want to know if I've got anyone on, let's see, that, there's an email about issues and they have not been corrected. So CC me on the email or forward the email to me and let me connect with them directly about it, because I know when I'm asking for things to get done, it's getting done within 24 hours. And so let me make sure that I'm included in that, because I'm so amazing at answering everyone's emails so fast. But at least I'm talking about it here, and we can, again, this is why we do this meeting every week with you guys, because there's so many things that are going on, and you can catch us on things like this if we need to get involved. So I wonder if anyone is on that is interested in discussing what occurred with the hearing for the ILS bill this week. Does anyone want to volunteer to talk about that, or I certainly can, but I'm wondering if we've got anyone on that was either there, because we had so many service providers there. I was so proud. And so, or if any of you were there or your staff were there and people want to talk about it, I would love to hear about it from folks. Or I could just call on you guys. I could do that too. That's always fun. So, does anyone know what we're talking about? Does anyone know about this ILS bill that's going through right now? Anyone? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so we have a bill that's going through. It's Assembly Bill 1568, and this is sponsored by the California Community Living Network. So that's Assembly Bill 1568. And I can actually send you a link. Some of you are signed up to get this information from California Community Living Network, but I'll just drop. Hopefully, I'm putting the right link in. I didn't even check it. We'll find out if they sent me the right link. That's in there. So it is now moving on to the Appropriations Committee. There was a hearing this week. We had a number of our service providers and their staff that showed up. It was awesome because people identified themselves. Thus far, this bill has received, which was new to me when I watched the hearing, was that ARCA came out in support of the bill. So Daniel Savino was there from the Association of Regional Center Agencies. They have come out in support of this bill. The State Council on Developmental Disabilities has come out in support of the bill. The California Disability Services Association, CDSA, has come out in support of the bill. SEIU, the union, has come out in support of the bill. Disability Rights California has come out in support of it. The Disability Voices United has come out in support of it. Our local On My Own agency has come out in support of it. The STEP agency, and I see PathPoint from down on the Tri-Counties area that is also signed on in support of this bill as well. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if we have anyone from CDSA that is on or CCLN that's on. But in essence, it's looking at fixing, and you can check out the link that is there as well. But the ILS rates are certainly require a fix in order to ensure that we are going to be able to provide independent living, services out in the community. And so, a couple things. I mean, to me, it looks at making sure that the ILS is in essence preserved as ILS, independent living services, as a training model as well. And because there is concern about how some utilization of ILS looks a little bit more like PA services and not really as much of a training model the way it's utilized. Alta always gets great recognition for how we try to keep ILS and SLS kind of how they were intended to be done. But again, want to encourage folks to take a look at that. It moves forward to appropriations and we'll certainly update folks here. I know, ILS was already a big, important area to fix in the rate study anyways from the Department of Developmental Services, but this would codify it and put it into place. We still have, like right now, there's things that are getting promoted, bills and things like that, but some of you are aware that soon we are going to be having the May revision of the budget coming out. And so, I don't know, it seems to come out like on the day we do the PAC meeting for some reason frequently. We've had that happen over the years where the May revision comes out during that time. I think they announced the closure of Sonoma Developmental Center like right in the middle of our PAC meeting one day because that was when it came out, the May revise. So we will update folks as it gets there, but we'll see some changes in things and some new proposals as they work in some of these bills in progress, possibly and some revisions to the budget. So we'll see. We know that there is some issues with the revenue generation in the state, and so it's not going to be as it was previously with all the extra revenue. But certainly, I think lots of opportunities to shore up our service provider rates, and no one's really going to argue against that. For us, we are also very much pushing the core staffing formula. That's a big one for Alta, obviously, to ensure that we have sustainability for us at the regional center as well moving forward. And so that is still very much in place as well. And that's a Rambula's bill that's moving forward with that. We will be announcing like in a month and a half or so, but those of you that are service providers know rollover is going to be happening. Rollover happens right when the fiscal year ends and we start a new fiscal year. So as we get towards the end of the fiscal year, we'll do our reminders to folks that you need to make sure that you have your authorizations in place. But we also know that first week of July, if anyone's been a provider before, it's not always July 1. It takes a few days sometimes. And so we'll be updating you all with the status on that. Yeah, David, since we did have a couple discussions about that today, that would be a good update to give. So let me have you do that right after I do electronic visit verification. So I have a list of a lot of service providers at Alta that have not signed up for electronic visit verification. And this list was created by the DDS looking at which purchases have been made in the last 2 years with service providers by our regional center and which of those providers have already attested that they are signed up. So Helen and I are going to be working on this next week. Lots of speech vendors that I saw on the list and some that I know don't work with us anymore. So we're going to be going through that list, making sure, finding out who still needs to get their electronic visit verification. I have not talked a lot about electronic visit verification in these meetings because we had some initial meetings about it. And everyone felt like they were confident that they had their process. They were either using the EVV system set up by the state, the electronic visit verification system set up by the state, or their own allowable process. But after Helen and I do our review of DDS's list that they sent us yesterday, we're going to come back to this group and we'll bring it up, I would assume, in our provider advisory committee meeting as well, because we're trying to reconcile our lists. The DDS DSP surveys are coming back too, round 2. DDS put out about that. These are the $8,000 surveys that went out. They sent us some presentation materials yesterday, and so I am going to roll that into next week's agenda, is to go over that. And then we also, some of you are aware that we've got a presentation from our clinical department as well. They're going to be talking with us. So we're going to actually put out a flyer for next week so that folks know to expect that discussion, because $8,000 is great for our providers if they can get that. And we really want to, like we did last time, we really want to encourage participation and utilization. I know Eric was a strong champion last time of making sure that service providers fill out those workforce surveys so that DDS has the actual information directly from the providers. It's a great way to be able to advocate for the needs of your DSPs and what the reality is, that people are facing. So stay tuned about that. We will talk about the clinical stuff, and then we'll also go over the workforce DSP surveys from DDS, and I'm just going to write down $8,000 because that's a great way to remember it. So we'll send out a survey about that, or not a survey, excuse me. We'll send out a flyer about that next week for those topics. David Lopez, can you provide an update? You put it in the chat there, but I'm hoping you can unmute and share with folks a little bit about that topic, please.
Hello, everybody. First off, I want to apologize for being late. I was hoping to be on time, but I got caught up in answering emails, so forgive me for being late. But me and my other two advocates, our advocate team, is putting together a free training here at Alta Regional Center for clients called People Planning Together. It's person-centered planning, and it is client-focused, and it's material put together for clients to focus on things that they want to focus on in their life. It can go as simple as, I want to transition out of residential care homes into my own apartment, or I want to transition out of my family's home into my own apartment. And it really focuses on, the kind of supports that they need, the people they need in their life, and it even goes to as far as looking at their emotional state, like what frustrates them in life, what makes them happy in life, what kind of things do they like to do, what's their normal routine, their morning routine. It is really client focused, and so we are asking for participation of any of our clients at Alta Regional Center that are interested in attending this free training. There is a commitment to 2 days, 2 parts of this training. It's a 2-day training, and I have a flyer and some information I would love to send out to any of you that may have clients that are interested. We have a couple dates in May, and we also have a couple dates in June that we'll be holding these sessions. Like I said, I'd be happy to send out the flyer. So if you guys want to contact me or my team, you can go through me, and I'll get you connected to our other 2 client advocates that are putting together the list of clients that are interested in attending. John, do you mind putting my contact information in the chat?
Well, here's what we're going to do for the vendors and for everyone.
Okay.
Is that when we send it out widely, we're going to send it out via MailChimp, and we're going to send it
Okay.
to everyone on the mailing list. So we've got
Perfect.
8,000
Okay.
people. So it'll go to service providers, it'll go to clients, family members, advocates, everyone that's signed up. But
Yeah.
just for you as service providers, if you could think of a client that might be interested in that, and obviously you interact with the clients a lot more than we do. We really want to encourage that. And I see Reva has joined us too. So good morning, Reva, as well. Again, another one of our client advocates who's been participating in this. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity for our clients, David.
Yes, I do too. And I think this is going to be really an opportunity for everyone, including if your clients, if you do have a list of clients that want to attend our training, also think about support people. We as advocates will try to support the group as much as possible. But if you have a client who's interested in coming to the training but needs a little more extra support, they can bring their support staff or a family member too. We just need to know the count of clients that you want to send, and we'll kind of spread it out between all the sessions that we're going to be offering from May to June. Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you, team.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I do want to touch on a discussion that we had this morning. And so, Faye, I'll have you unmute for this part of it. We're going to talk about SDP real quick. So we had a good discussion. We have a couple of meetings in the morning before we do our coffee with community services. We meet with our case management staff and then also meet with accounting in the morning and kind of get updates on what's going on at our agency so that we can give you the most up-to-date information as our service providers. And obviously have a lot of staff that are on here as well. The discussion that we had a little bit earlier today was providing another opportunity to discuss SDP, so the self-determination program for service providers. I feel like it's been at least a year since we had our last discussion about that. There was some clarification that was needed about rate setting and whether or not it's okay to develop your own rate and not utilize your vendor rate. We've had these discussions in this setting, but I think it's time for us to do it again because we've got so many more participants. And Faye, approximately how many people do we have that are participating in self-determination program right now?
I think it's 230 something, 237, I think last time I checked, something in that ballpark.
And we certainly have good distribution, I think, amongst kind of our catchment area. We've got people in different areas. It's not just the Sacramento folks or Roseville people per se that are participating in SDP, and then also good across the demographics of our regional center as well. We have it's widely utilized, and so I think because we have all that increased utilization, and we've had some changes, right? We have a new unit, new managers, so. Real quickly, I don't know, I think we talked about the changes in here, but can you just explain real quickly about the unit that we have?
Yeah, absolutely. So SDP being as unique as it is, we've chosen to have a unit of service coordinators and a manager that focus just strictly on self-determination program clients. So right now we have our participant choice specialists. We have 2 of those. And then we have 6 service coordinators and a manager, Melissa Schusler, who are working purely on self-determination, which means that it should go a lot smoother. They will be pairing up with our traditional service coordinators to walk them through processes and to sort of get the process a little less bumpy.
So I know we brought our participant choice specialists on previously and introduced you to them in this meeting, but I think we're going to have folks come back. And so we're going to plan, we'll pick a week here coming up in the next couple months where we will have kind of a self-determination specific coffee with community services. And we will have Melissa come and we'll have her team come so you could get introduced to the self-determination service coordinators. We reacquaint you with our participant choice specialists and really want to have an opportunity to give you updates on self-determination, but then really want to hear from you as service providers about what your experiences have been delivering it, what some of the opportunities have been, and what are some of the challenges maybe as well. And Faye, we'll figure out between now and then, because we might want to gather some feedback from our providers in advance of that meeting, just to make their time more useful and a more rich discussion when we have it. And so you and I can discuss that. And then between now and when we set it up, and we will we will advertise that one as well. We'll also put a flyer out so folks know the date, and we'll talk about it in advance when we're going to have our self-determination specific discussion with the service providers. And so be thinking about, issues and topics that you might have, and we'll work on how we best want to organize that feedback as well related to it. And that'll cover it, right, Faye, for the most part, I think?
That'll cover it. If people have specific questions, and they could maybe submit them and we can work on some answers. I know there seems to be a similar theme for most of the questions, so.
Absolutely. All right. That brings me to the end of our agenda for today. I don't think I missed anything, and I will look over to Jordan real quickly to see if there's anything else that I missed, which I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
And Helen, was there anything else that we wanted to make sure we touched on?
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
We are good. I love it. All right, very good. So I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend, a great rest of their day today, and we will look forward to a couple cool topics next week, and really, not only having that clinical presentation, but also talking about the new workforce survey that's going to be coming out from DDS and the opportunity to respond to that. So hope again, everyone has a great weekend. Thank you very much for attending today, and we'll look forward to talking to folks next week.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Very welcome. Bye, folks.